Krista Corbello joins us now on The Gist. Thanks for being with us, Krista.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
You are a Catholic speaker, activist in the pro-life movement, and an artist. Tell us about your work with Even This Way.
Well, Even This Way was born from my own personal experience, having lost a sibling to abortion. And through my time at Louisiana Right to Life, which is when I discovered my pro-life story and testimony, it unfolded over the course of several months, giving dozens of presentations all over the state of Louisiana. So when I found out about my aborted sibling, I knew that I wanted a ministry for people like me. And although I participated in post-abortive ministries like Rachel's Vineyard and Project Rachel, I felt it wasn't quite suited for what my experience was because I didn't have the abortion myself. So it's really been a long, arduous process. I found out about my aborted sibling in 2016, and I actually just finished my master's program in psychology at Divine Mercy University, studying the experience of sibling survivors like me for the past 2 years, and I'm finally ready to share my research with the world about what we go through and how hard it is for sibling survivors of abortion.
Yeah, that's such an interesting perspective that I don't think I've ever even heard of or thought of before. So it's so good that you're, looking into that. You're also involved in campus ministry. Tell us about your experience working with young adults.
I've worked with young adults, high schoolers, and college students. So I think what I love about working with them is that they're looking for the truth. They want to know and understand different issues important in the church. Most recently, my most recent position was in high school ministry at Vermilion Catholic here in Louisiana, where I'm from. And I find that high schoolers, especially, and college students and young adults, they just want to have conversation, and they want to dive deeper, and they want to find the truth. And I think especially this topic of abortion, it's such a hard issue, and especially for sibling survivors, we don't want to judge our parents for the abortions that they've had. And it is a difficult and kind of nuanced topic. So I like to have conversations. I like to let people ask questions, even if it's hard questions. I'm not offended by people and their journey and what they're trying to understand. So I think for me, a big part of my ministry is just creating an environment for conversation and dialogue about these difficult issues.
That's such a good perspective to have, because I think sometimes conversations surrounding pro-life issues feel combative. People feel really strong one way or the other, and there's just not a way to have real dialogue about anything.
Sure. Yeah. And they just want to know the truth. They want to know what the church teaches and why, and they want to understand the why behind it. I think for me, in my personal testimony, my experience, my mom, who was abortion vulnerable as an immigrant woman when she was pregnant for me and abandoned by her family at the time, I know my why. And I think when I share my story, people can kind of come to an understanding about the greater issue of abortion isn't just about post-abortive women. It's also about people who are abortion vulnerable and people like me who are sibling survivors.
Yeah, it's so important. How did you get involved in the pro-life movement?
Honestly, I was very minutely involved in pro-life work. In college, I had actually a president of mine who I overheard a conversation while we were doing the Cemetery of the Innocents. A lot of people do the flags in the ground to represent how many abortions happen every day. And I was just helping out with that. I did a lot of small things in college, and like putting the flags in the ground, making brownies for the bake sales and things like that. But I wasn't really involved in the dialogue aspect. I didn't feel smart enough to talk about the issue. And so when I overheard my president of the pro-life club at the time at my university, I was just really intrigued by how filled with compassion he was for this other college student, a fellow college student who was asking hard questions about abortion, what I felt was a really hard and difficult conversation to have. And he was doing it so eloquently. And I just wanted that. I wanted to be able to speak like that. And it wasn't until years later, I had done college ministry for my senior year, and then after the year after I graduated college. And I applied for this job at Louisiana Right to Life. And upon applying and starting to give educational presentations about abortion, detailed educational presentations about abortion, it was when I discovered my own story that I really took the issue to heart. It wasn't just this, theoretical thing that happens in China that kind of sometimes happens here in America. No, it was a thing that abortion could have taken my life. And then further down the road, I found out, abortion did take my sibling's life, and going into my own existential kind of questioning about my survivor's guilt. Why was I here? Why wasn't my sibling here? That was really what set me on fire, I feel. And the Lord has healed a lot of those wounds in my past about yeah, my story, just things involving my story, there were a lot of different elements about it that were very painful for someone in their early 20s to learn about.
Yeah, that's such an important part of the conversation too, is this idea. And I love that you say that on your website, like that God can heal those wounds, and that you really want to share that, the freedom that you've got from that deep healing.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, my story is kind of unique because I didn't share a womb with my aborted sibling. My aborted sibling is through my biological father, and I didn't know him until I was 22. I was already almost done with college by the time that I met him, and it wasn't even until years after that I found out that he had an abortion himself. So, I mean, just the abandoned father, like abandoned by my father wound, that I was in the womb when I was abandoned. I was, from the time I was a little zygote, I didn't have a father in my life. And that was something that I carried for a long time. And so that, plus the fact that later on in life, my biological father did abort a child, it was just very heavy. And I think only by God's mercy and kindness truly in my life that I was able to, I say all the time that a lot of these different parts of my life feel like Good Friday, and through healing, through my program at Divine Mercy University, and just having the verbiage to be able to talk about that experience from all those years ago, it really is through God's mercy that I've come out on the other side, that I can have an Easter Sunday.
That's such an important part of the story that we all need to hear and be encouraged about. Where can people learn more and follow you?
Sure. Well, my work with Even This Way is all online, eventhisway.org, and you can follow us on social media as well, Even This Way, on pretty much every platform. We actually just had a panel this past Saturday sharing the stories of other sibling survivors, and I'd really like to do grief intervention, which is what I studied at Divine Mercy University, the program that I'm in the process of creating for siblings, a grief intervention program for us. So eventhisway.org /events, you can see those kinds of things on my website, and other sibling stories too.
Wonderful. Krista, thank you so much for taking time to be with us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate y'all and let me share this with you today.